WNBA television ratings down more than 50%. We should probably do a study on that. I'm not sure why that would be. Wait. Since Caitlin Clark's injury.
It's the Caitlin Clark effect, Clarkonomics, whatever you want to call it. At this point in time, if you're still denying that, I don't know what to say. You're not living in reality. Unfortunately, though, there are still people at this point in time who are still denying that.
When Uncle KC found out that the WNBA is struggling to maintain their ratings without Caitlin Clark,
the WNBA was riding higher than it ever had before. Sold-out arenas, record-breaking viewership, nonstop media coverage, and all of it seemed to orbit around one name, Caitlin Clark. But the second she was eliminated from the playoffs, that momentum collapsed like a house of cards. Ratings didn't just dip, they nosedived. Ticket sales slowed. The energy drained out of the postseason almost overnight. So the question is unavoidable. Did the WNBA gamble its entire future on one player? And if so, what happens now that its brightest stars out of the spotlight?
The WNBA has a problem. And that problem is Caitlin Clark not playing in WNBA games.
From her record-shattering run at Iowa to her debut with the Indiana Fever, Caitlin Clark didn't just enter the WNBA, she ignited it. Overnight, she transformed from promising rookie to the league's undisputed face. Her deep three-pointers, court vision, and unshakable poise turned routine games into can't-miss events. And the numbers back it up. A struggling Fever franchise suddenly looked like a contender. Regular season matchups that used to pull modest audiences skyrocketed, with one game peaking at 1.8 million viewers, numbers the league had never seen before. Ticket demand exploded, merchandise sales spiked, and media outlets couldn't get enough of her. But Clark wasn't just dominating on the court, she was crossing over into cultural stardom. Constantly compared to NBA icons like Steph Curry and LeBron James, she piled up rookie milestones at a historic pace. Most points and assists by a rookie guard, the first WNBA rookie with multiple triple-doubles, and a highlight reel that made every game feel like an event. Caitlin Clark wasn't just playing basketball, she was rewriting the WNBA's story in real time. Then, just like that, it was over. Caitlin Clark's Indiana Fever were bounced from the playoffs, and with her elimination, the league's shining momentum didn't just slow down, it collapsed overnight. The timing couldn't have been worse. The playoffs are supposed to be the WNBA's crown jewel, the moment where casual fans become hooked and storylines peak. Instead, what should have been a crescendo fell flat. Viewership didn't taper, it plummeted. One night, Clark had pulled in over 1.8 million viewers. The very next game without her? A jaw-dropping drop to just 161,000. That's not a soft decline, it's a catastrophic freefall that no sports league wants to see in its most important stretch of the year. And it wasn't just the numbers on TV. Inside the arenas, the change was obvious. Seats that had been filled to capacity when Clark was on the floor suddenly stood empty. The playoff energy, those electric moments when every possession feels like life or death, vanished into thin air. Even the media coverage cooled instantly. Headlines that once screamed about Clark's every move now barely whispered about the games that continued without her. The brutal truth became impossible to ignore. Fans weren't showing up for the WNBA. They were showing up for Caitlin Clark. She had turned routine regular season games into must-watch events, but without her, the postseason felt lifeless, like the air had been sucked out of the league. Instead of building to a historic playoff run, the WNBA was left staring at empty seats, dwindling ratings, and one uncomfortable question. Had the league built its entire identity on a single player? And now, with her gone, was that identity crumbling? The numbers didn't lie. Caitlin Clark wasn't just the face of the WNBA, she had become the entire foundation holding it up. And that's a dangerous place for any league to be. Think about it. The NBA has LeBron, Steph, Giannis, Jokic, stars spread across different teams, pulling fans into rivalries and storylines no matter who makes it to the finals. But the WNBA? It put nearly all its chips on Clark. Every ticket spike, every merchandise sellout, every primetime broadcast hinged on whether or not she was on the floor. That kind of model isn't just risky, it's fragile. One bad injury, one early playoff exit, or even just an off night, and the entire business case starts to wobble. And that's exactly what happened. With Clark gone, the league looked exposed, as if the spotlight that once made the WNBA shine now revealed cracks in its foundation. And let's be honest, it isn't fair to her either. Clark is just one player, a rookie at that, being asked to carry the weight of a league that's been around for nearly 3 decades. She can't be expected to shoulder every storyline, every ticket sale, every TV contract. No athlete should. But here's the problem. The WNBA didn't just make her its brightest star, it made her the only star. By centering its entire identity around one athlete, the league left itself with no safety net. The second she was eliminated, the hype train screeched to a halt. The harsh reality? Clark's shoulders may be broad, but the league is too heavy for one player to carry alone. Caitlin Clark gave the WNBA a once-in-a-generation opportunity. Millions of new eyeballs, national headlines, and a cultural buzz the league had been chasing for years. But instead of using her rise to lift the whole ecosystem, the WNBA made a critical mistake. It put the entire spotlight on her and her alone. Rivalries? Barely developed? Storylines around other franchises? Left in the shadows. Players like Aja Wilson, Breanna Stewart, and Nafisa Collier, all elite, decorated, championship-caliber stars, were too often treated as side notes while the cameras stayed fixed on Clark. When she played, the WNBA felt like must-see TV. But when she didn't, there was no plan B. This wasn't just a missed opportunity, it was a strategic failure. Sports leagues thrive on tension, narratives, and multiple heroes and villains. Think of how the NBA built not just Michael Jordan, but also rivalries with the Pistons, the Knicks, the Lakers. Those stories kept fans hooked, even when Jordan wasn't on the court. The WNBA could have done the same, pushing Wilson as a dominant force, Stewart as a dynasty builder, or Collier as an underdog superstar. Instead, it narrowed its lens until Clark became the de facto spokesperson for the entire league. And that tunnel vision backfired. Because when Clark was sidelined, so was the league's identity. All the energy that should have been distributed across multiple stars was funneled into one, and when she was gone, the WNBA had no momentum to fall back on. The sad irony? The league had the talent. It had the personalities. It had the rivalries just waiting to be marketed. But instead of building a broad stage, it built a one-woman show. And that's why the curtain fell so fast. When Caitlin Clark was on the court, money flowed. Networks like ESPN and ABC were cashing in on record-breaking audiences, ticket prices soared, and merchandise flew off the shelves. But the moment she was gone, the financial fallout started rolling in like a row of dominoes. It started with ticket sales. Games that had been instant sellouts suddenly struggled to fill seats. Families and casual fans who had shown up just to watch Clark play didn't bother returning once she was out. The fever pitch demand cooled overnight. Then came the merchandise slump. Jerseys, t-shirts, and collectibles tied directly to Clark had been moving in massive numbers. Without her on the floor, that hype died down, and league-wide sales slowed with it. But the biggest domino of all is media rights. The WNBA has long relied on television contracts as its financial backbone, and networks invested heavily under the assumption that Clark's momentum would keep audiences rising. Now, with ratings nosediving after her elimination, those assumptions look shaky. If the trend continues, broadcasters could reassess their deals, slash future contract values, and put the league's revenue under serious threat. And let's not forget, this isn't happening in a vacuum. The WNBA has historically operated at a loss, kept afloat with help from the NBA. That means every dip in revenue, every shaky ratings report, every empty seat matters. The league was already balancing on thin financial ice, and tying its fortunes almost entirely to one rookie star may have just made that ice even thinner. The message is clear. Clark's absence isn't just a storyline problem, it's a business crisis that ripples through every corner of the league. If the WNBA wants to survive, and more importantly, thrive, it needs to confront a hard truth. No league can stand on one player's shoulders forever. What keeps fans hooked in sports isn't just raw talent. It's the drama, the rivalries, the larger-than-life narratives that make every matchup feel personal. Look at the NBA. Fans didn't just tune in for Michael Jordan. They tuned in for the bad boy Pistons who tried to break him, the Knicks who played spoiler, the finals showdowns against the Jazz. Same with today's Warriors. Steph Curry's shooting brilliance mattered, but it was the wars with LeBron's Cavaliers that cemented an era. The rivalries made the legends. The WNBA has that same potential, it just hasn't built it yet. A'ja Wilson could be Clark's perfect foil, the established superstar determined to protect her throne. Breanna Stewart has the championship resume to embody dominance and dynasty. Nafisa Collier brings the underdog grit, the rising star storyline that fans love to root for. And that's not even mentioning talents like Sabrina Ionescu, who already has the New York spotlight and crossover appeal. But here's the problem. Too often, these players get treated like background actors in the Caitlin Clark show. Instead of promoting Wilson as a dynasty builder, or Stewart as a reigning queen, or Ionescu as the New York face of the league, the WNBA has funneled nearly all its marketing oxygen into one star. And when she's not on the floor, the story disappears. The fix is obvious but urgent. Stop treating the WNBA as Caitlin Clark plus everyone else. Rivalries need to be hyped, playoff storylines need to be marketed months in advance, and every matchup between top teams should feel like an event. Imagine the buzz if Clark versus Wilson was promoted as a generational clash, or Stewart versus Collier as a battle for dominance. That's how you turn one superstar's spark into a fire that keeps burning even when she's not in the spotlight. Because here's the bottom line. Fans don't just show up for a player, they show up for a story. And right now, the WNBA has the talent, the personalities, and the raw drama waiting to be tapped. The only question is whether the league will finally pull the trigger and build the rivalries that can turn casual curiosity into lifelong loyalty. Star power alone won't save the WNBA. What will keep fans engaged is connection. The kind of bond that makes viewers feel invested in the players, the teams, and the league as a whole. And that means the WNBA has to innovate, not just rely on old-school broadcasts and highlight reels. Think about how today's sports fans consume content. They're not just watching games, they're living inside them. They want behind-the-scenes access, locker room moments, practice footage, player vlogs. They want to see their favorite athletes off the court just as much as on it. That's what creates loyalty. That's what turns casual viewers into diehards. The WNBA needs to lean into this. Imagine weekly docu-series-style content following stars like Caitlin Clark, A'ja Wilson, or Sabrina Ionescu through travel days, workouts, and off-court passions. Think of the way Netflix's Drive to Survive turned millions of casuals into Formula One fans. That's the kind of storytelling the WNBA could use to expand its reach far beyond its current base. Then there's scheduling. Too often, WNBA games go head-to-head against major NBA or NFL events, cutting into potential audiences. Smarter scheduling, primetime slots, and strategic marketing around marquee matchups could give the league room to breathe and shine on its own stage. And let's not forget the in-arena experience. Turning games into community-driven events, family-friendly atmospheres, interactive fan zones, stronger local storytelling can help convert one-time attendees into repeat buyers. Sports aren't just about what happens on the court. They're about the feeling of belonging, of being part of something bigger. On top of that, the WNBA should push harder into digital-first partnerships with creators, influencers, and streaming platforms. TikTok clips, Instagram Reels, and YouTube mini-docs could amplify storylines and introduce players to millions who might never watch a traditional broadcast. The formula is simple. The more fans feel like they know the players, not just as athletes, but as people, the less fragile the league becomes when one superstar exits. If the WNBA can broaden its connection strategy, it won't just survive Clark's absence, it'll build a stronger, more resilient foundation for the future. Caitlin Clark's exit didn't just end her season, it exposed how fragile the WNBA's momentum really is. The ratings collapse and empty arenas showed what happens when a league relies too heavily on one player. But this doesn't have to be the end. It can be a turning point. If the WNBA broadens its spotlight, builds rivalries, and invests in stars like Aja Wilson, Brianna Stewart, and Sabrina Ionescu, it can turn Clark's spark into a lasting movement. So now the question is yours. What should the WNBA do next? Should it double down on Clark's star power, or finally build the rivalries and storylines that can sustain the league for decades? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I'm curious to see where you stand. And as always, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you never miss the latest updates. Caitlin Clark's exit may have stalled the momentum, but if the WNBA learns from this moment, it could be the start of a much bigger story.